This is a story about a canoe. Not just any canoe, but a Grumman named Starkle. I couldn't take it any longer. The view from Morro Bay Harbor, looking south toward Los Osos and the 800-acre estuary, where meandering brackish channels fluctuated with the tide, and the reported 250 species of birds had all become more than I could bear to look at from the shore. I needed a closer look. I needed a boat.
He said, who the hell are you to call us such a late hour? Mister, we don't want no trouble, but a meal and a smoke. 3 days are gone since we were separated by the stone. Well, he just shook his head and said, come in, come in.
In the spring of 2008, I had borrowed my friend's canoe. It was a 16-foot green Coleman made from molded fiberglass and roomy enough for a family of 3. Over the next several weekends, that green canoe had paddled friends and family all over the harbor and the channels of the estuary. It was clear that I needed a canoe in my life, but a canoe that was lighter, something I could carry myself, and yet the canoe needed to be strong, reliable, fast in many waters, a canoe fit for adventure. And of course, the biggest requirement of all, I had to be able to afford it. Although he wasn't talking about canoes, I'm reminded of a Tom Waits line. Good, fast, and cheap. You can only pick 2. But I needed all 3. Was it possible? Of course it was, because Tom Waits wasn't talking about canoes. I searched Craigslist for canoe, sorted by price, and immediately found a $100 canoe in Atascadero. I clicked on the photo and saw a 15-foot aluminum canoe sitting on a patch of grass. Aluminum was light, strong, and at $100, affordable. I measured out the dimensions on the floor of my room and imagined where the gear and people would go. Everything looked like it would float. I sent an email. I remember when I got my canoe, September 19, 2008. Soon as I got home, I slapped the Sea Shepherd sticker on the hull and went to the harbor for its maiden voyage. My 15-foot keeled canoe wasn't just any old aluminum canoe. It was a Grumman, a genuine Grumman with the stamped Grumman logo on the bow's gunwale to prove it. Grumman is short for Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation, founded in 1929 and later became Grumman Aerospace Corporation. They manufactured military and civilian aircraft. William Hoffman, an executive at Grumman and also an avid canoeist, thought to try using the stretch form aluminum used in making B-52s to make a canoe. Thus, in 1945 or so, the first aluminum canoe debuted. It was a hit. Airplane-grade aluminum canoes were light, strong, and tracked well in flat water. It was such a hit that in 1952, Grumman Aerospace Corporation sent its canoe division upstate to Marathon, New York. This is important because all the aluminum canoes manufactured after that point were stamped Marathon, not Grumman. Marathon canoes had the same fantastic shape, strength, and draw as a Grumman. You just couldn't call a Marathon canoe old school. And there's a spirit, strength, and stern durability that comes with anything old school. I was the perfect captain for a Grumman.
So where were we? We were, we're coming back from the Nazi debacle that we couldn't make it down the river where we wanted to make it, so we realized that it wasn't something that was going to happen. Yeah. So we had to hike everything out. So we're hiking the canoe out, and we know it's a good distance, but we don't know how far, and we're not even sure that we're going down the right roads and all this stuff. It's like the spider web of roads that we're pretty sure we're going in the right direction and all that stuff. And we're carrying the canoe on our heads, and we left a bunch of stuff behind that we knew we were gonna, whatever we were hiking, however far it was, we're gonna have to hike back, get that stuff, and then carry all that stuff back too. And so we're carrying the canoe first, and we get to this hill it's a pretty steep hill, it's a couple 100 yards long, super gravelly, all rutted out because it had just had a big storm a couple weeks prior or whatever. And we get about halfway up this thing, and our feet are slipping, we're sweating, and we realize we have to put the boat down. We're like, we need a break, put the boat down. And I don't know if Matt knew that I was serious, but I was serious. I looked at him in the eyes and said, "How attached to this boat are you?" And I was really debating whether or not we should just leave it behind. And he looked at me, and he just had that normal Matt look, and was just like, "This boat's a family member. I couldn't leave it behind."
Every boat needs a name. My canoe needed a name that would summon the spirit of stubborn strength and enormous energy. I turned to my library for inspiration, and there, on the top shelf, the spine standing tall, paddle to the Amazon, Don Starkle, a Canadian badass who, with his sons in 1985, embarked on a 12,000-mile journey from their home in Ontario, down the Mississippi, and around the Gulf of Mexico, and all the way to the Amazon River. Starkle was self-supported with no sponsors. Now that's old school. I decided at one point to keep track of all the dynamic bodies of water that my boats had been on. The Starkle, being such an easy backcountry cargo carrier, was beginning to see a lot of water, both flat and moving, each yielding an adventure and experience that only a canoe can bring. Discovering new wildernesses and backcountry that was only reachable by boat. Whether it was a Type 1 fun trip with my daughter or a Type 2 fun trip with my buddies, it was the Starkle that we all had shared. The Starkle that brought us together, that reconnected everybody with nature. As Bill Mason famously wrote, the path of the paddle can be a means of getting things back to their original perspective.
You can call her Silver, you can call her friend. She can take you up the river and bring you back again. No matter where I travel, when I reach an end, I've got 15 feet of aero-grade aluminum. I don't ask questions, it's like she knows the way. Before I begin